Perhaps you'd let me know when you're planning to come home.
I hardly knew myself, Mrs. Hudson. That's the trouble with dismembered country squires. They're notoriously difficult to schedule.
What's in there?
Never mind.
Did you catch a murderer, Mr. Holmes?
Caught the murderer, still looking for the legs. I think we'll call it a draw.
And I notice you've published another of your stories, Dr. Watson.
Yes, did you enjoy it?
No,
Oh?
I never enjoy them.
Why not?
I never say anything, do I? According to you, I just show people up the stairs and serve you breakfast.
Well, within the narrative, that is, broadly speaking, your function.
My what?
Don't feel singled out, Mrs. Hudson. I'm hardly in the dog one.
The dog one?
I'm your landlady, not a plot device.
Do you mean the Hound of the Baskervilles?
You make the room so drab and dingy.
Oh, blame it on the illustrator. He's out of control. I've had to grow this moustache just so people will recognise me.
That's fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Stephen Moffat, Super 2, and Rupert Graves. Right to here, right. Come on in here. Get on in here. Oh, can you go? Oh, you're going to switch it up. They switched it up. Might want to change those lower thirds. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome back to Nerd HQ. Oh, Rupert, it's your first time with us.
It is.
Yeah, it's Rupert's first time at Nerd HQ, everybody. You got some fan art over there, by the way. You've been immortalized
that's great.
with pen and paper. So you guys know the drill. This is your time to ask them whatever the hell you want to ask them. So who's got a question? You guys can pick out. Just anybody raise their hand. You get to choose. Sometimes it's difficult when everyone's hands are in the air with phones in them, though. That's difficult. I think you have one right here. There you go. You just wait for a microphone. Now you have two.
Awesome. All right. In His Last Vow, I love that Moriarty was the last person that Sherlock saw in his mind palace. Can you give any insight to why you decided that?
No. What was it? It was he was dying. He was dying. It was the idea that's the ultimate Satan locked in the cellar. What's in the deepest, darkest hell of Sherlock's mind, and it would have to be Moriarty trying to drag him down, trying to destroy him even further. No more thought than that. It would have to be Moriarty. He'd have to beat in order to be alive again. I guess that was no more than that. But you know, if you sort of imagine, which is remarkably easy to do, Sherlock's mind palace it's a sort of haunted mind palace. It would have to be because he's clinically insane. So what's in the basement? Well, it's got to be Moriarty, hasn't it? And probably in the next cell, the Hound of the Baskervilles. You know.
Stephen, I have a question. It's kind of a cross between Doctor Who and Sherlock. I know on Doctor Who...
Well, that's never come up.
On Doctor Who, I believe you exclusively wrote for River. Is there a character on Sherlock that's similar?
It's no longer true that I exclusively wrote for River because she's in Big Finish now, the audios. There wasn't a particular rule about River at all. In fact, it nearly came up that we used her in an episode I wasn't going to write. So that wasn't me just saying, only I get to write River at all. I'd be perfectly happy for other people to do that. And no, there isn't a character on Sherlock where I would sort of say that one's mine. That would be terribly selfish. I started Molly Hooper, but we all love writing Molly. So, and that was the big crime because she's not really in the originals. She has no precedent in the original. But no, there's no restrictions of that kind. You wouldn't be allowed to. It's shared universe etiquette. Everyone is allowed to play with all the toys in the box. I've just defined just how mature the process is. You knew that. Matt Smith.
Hello. Hypothetically, for all three of you, if you were on a rooftop and you were, blackmailing a very charming sociopath, if you were to, for some reason, put a firearm into your mouth and pull the trigger, how would you fake that?
It's utterly unfakeable. Not only is it impossible to blow the back of your head off in real life just for larks, he's doing it in front of the cleverest detective in the world, who's used to what dead bodies look like. He knows the impact. He probably knew the velocity of the bullet. It's unfakeable. You can't fake that. I mean, we faked it on, obviously, in television because Andrew absolutely refused to shoot himself. We had no idea until he turned up that day. Very, very, very tricky agent. And, but, you know, in real life, you couldn't. So, no, that's impossible. You just have to kill yourself. There's no other way of doing it. Yeah. Very what?
I'd be dead.
What's dodgy about it? You couldn't dodge it. Wait, what are you going to do, duck? I mean... Hypothetically, Rupert, how would you...
The only reason you don't see the gun go right in the mouth is because we're not allowed to show that on TV anyways.
Stephen's right. You can't do it. You couldn't do it. No. Impossible.
Is Lestrade ever wrong?
Right over there.
Hi. Can I stand up? Oh, okay. My question is for Rupert. I was wondering what was your favorite scene to film during Sherlock, and what was your most difficult scene to film, and how did you prepare for it?
My favourite scene probably is the... because I don't often get too much to say, it's nice doing lots of kind of reacting stuff. So it was when I saw, when Lestrade first saw Sherlock was okay and the underground car park was great. I liked all that. I don't really, I just learn my lines really and turn up, and then I do. And I went to a police station to see how they do it. But you kind of, actually, the kind of art really is to react in the moment, really. So it depends very much on what Benedict's doing and the other people are doing.
There's a lovely scene, isn't there, in the special, which obviously you haven't seen, which you do with Mrs. Hudson.
Yeah, well, yeah. I did. It's the first scene, isn't it? Proper scene between Lestrade and Mrs. Hudson. Yeah, that was great. We've been kind of friends for a while, Una and I, and it was great to have get to act together. That was lovely.
Right there.
So, Sue and Steve, I've been a fan since Coupling, and I'm curious, how much of Stephen and Sue are actually in Susan and Steve? And Sue, how did you feel about that version of you on screen?
There's quite a lot of us in that, isn't there? Quite a lot of it's based on truth. And
But
we're not telling you which.
Our son watched it recently and he really liked it, and he just kept saying, "Did that happen?" And we said, "Not covering it. It's not happening."
But in the UK, it took till the third series, I think, for the journalists to realise it was based on us, even though we use the same names.
Seriously, journalists used to say to us, "Are any of the characters based on you two?" And we said, we didn't actually change the names. I mean, it's... Is there a reason you were transferred from the investigative journalism section?
But actually, on the last series, all the birth of the baby and me telling you to ask me 3 times for...
Oh, yeah. If you remember the very last one where Susan asked Steve, "I want you to check with me 3 times whether I really want an epidural, if I'm really serious about it." And she ends up saying, "Just get me a fucking epidural." That happened.
And I also had to park the car when I was in labour because you couldn't
I'm a
reverse.
terrible driver. So I'd learned to drive specifically to drive Sue to the hospital we got there, and I couldn't for the life of me get the car reversed in. So Sue, you know, with fairly regular contraction says, "Oh, for fuck's sake, out of the way." Least manly man in history gets out in front of people as my wife is going, "Ah! Ah!" And I'm standing going, "Yeah, that's it."
I love the insight I just got into your life. I appreciate it.
Well, there's a box set available. It's still out there. You can download it. It's terrific stuff.
Yeah, right down. Let's go with you right in the front here.
Mr. Moffat, huge fan. Love your work. My question is for all of you. I'm wondering, in your everyday life, are you more of a Sherlock or a Watson?
Watson. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, because Sherlock's really clever. I mean, that's it. I wish I could be like Sherlock Holmes, but I'm too stupid. That's true. I can't. Sue will come into the room crying, and I say, "Something's wrong, isn't it? Isn't it? This is the thing you do, isn't it? Right? Yeah. Yeah. I had floating text. It just said, "You twat." Rupert Lestrade.
I'm too stupid even to be Watson. I'm just Lestrade.
Yeah, I like to think I'm a bit Sherlocky. I like to kind of deduce people's lives in kind of supermarkets by looking at their trolleys and seeing what they've got in there. And then working out how many people in their family and if they cook well and stuff. That's what I do. Yeah.
I would confirm that my wife is the closest to a genius sociopath among us.
Compliment.
One way or the other. No, you probably are the most Sherlocky, actually, though. In a nice way. Sherlock's nice, really. But you are probably the best sensible thinker of all of us.
I see a hand in the back right there.
I can see you now. Okay, I got kind of two questions for you, Rupert. First question, what is Lestrade's ideal date? Because I remember at Sherlock, you said something about him living in a sad little bachelor pad surrounded by takeaway. And the second question is, how has Sherlock's relationship with Lestrade changed since he's come back from the dead?
Are they related questions?
There was nothing in the rules about that.
Mycroft is Lestrade's date. No. No. Maybe Molly Hooper. If you look at Lestrade's face when she takes her coat off when she comes to the Christmas party. And what was the other? Sorry, the other question. I told you I was thick.
How has Sherlock and Lestrade's relationship changed?
I don't really know yet because we haven't had enough. We've kind of. Thanks. Well, we bounced back to the Victorian era and all that's kind of. We'll wait for the fourth series to come along and see how that changes. But I think it will deepen their love.
Did you just say get it? What's wrong with you people? Right down there, right in the front.
How did you want the audience to feel right at the end of His Last Vow?
Well, I suppose it looked like it was the final end, it's off and off and off, and then, surprise, he's getting called back. So just, to put Sherlock apparently in an inescapable situation and for him to be offered, bizarrely enough, a way out because Moriarty apparently has missed.
So that's how you fake it.
Yeah.
That?
Yeah, don't swallow. But I mean, basically, you always want. I mean, this sounds awful, as opposed to everything else I've said so far. But you just want people to be very keen to watch it again. That's what you want. Oh, I can't wait to see what happens next, is what you want people to be thinking, because you want to show up again. So that, I guess. Not very detailed.
Do you guys want to pick them?
Oh, right.
I can pick them for you if you want to.
Hi, my question is, I've just literally forgotten my question. No.
Are you asking what your question is?
Yes.
Yeah.
What haven't you been asking? No. It's been a very family affair with bringing Benedict's parents in, and with Watson's wife being
Mm.
Martin's wife. Any other family members going to be coming up in the next episodes that we might expect to see?
Our son's in it.
Yes.
Well, we don't specifically do that. We don't say, all right, who wants to go around the Christmas table? Right? It has. I mean, I don't particularly know why the ecology of Sherlock works that way. It's always been a very small, close-knit, frequently related or copulating group of people. I think there's one point we counted there were sort of, like, in effect, 4 or 5 married couples around the table at one point, or couples of some kind. So I don't know why. But it's a show that grew out of a friendship and a marriage. So I suppose that's just the ecology of it. But we don't specifically think, you know, we've got a new villain. Can we see photographs of your relatives? So maybe we should. It's been working well for us. I don't know. Maybe we should adopt the people who aren't part of our family. We should... Rupert, do you fancy being adopted? We could adopt you.
Yes, I've got lots of extended family waiting, hopefully, outside the gates of the studio. But they haven't been taken up yet. But they're...
It's actually a canny device of keeping the budget down by making everyone kind of double up in bedrooms. Always the producer.
Oh, yes, hang on. That one there.
Hi, Mr. Moffat.
Hello.
You've done episodes based around what are arguably the most well-known stories, The Woman, The Hound, The Professor. Going forward, how do you decide what stories you want to focus on?
Well, to be honest, we decided to do the Woman, the Hound, and the Professor in Series 2 because, you know, as Mark and I always say, to hell with deferred pleasure, get on with it now. And they're the 3 biggies. They're the 3 people are always going to be asking us about until we do them. So we did them. There is a fund of material that no one ever touches in Sherlock Holmes. Everyone's done the Hound of the Baskervilles. Most people do Moriarty. Irene Adler isn't a first for us, you know, isn't a first for... So there's a whole bunch of other stories, ideas, villains that are in there. I'm not telling you which ones are taking our attention at the moment, but there's a bunch of other stuff. There are 60 stories. There's only one Hound. There's only one story that Moriarty really appears in. Irene Adler barely shows up in A Scandal in Bohemia. So, you know, there's a whole bunch of things that we can do. And we can make up new stories. We can combine stories into... I mean, very few of those stories are long enough to make anything approaching a film. They barely make it to... in the wonderful Granada series, they had their work cut out trying to expand some of those stories even to an hour. But there is a fund of great ideas, great mysteries, great villains, great openers, great gags, really, for us to use. We won't run out because, frankly, we make the show so incredibly slowly. That one. Yes.
Yesterday you said that if you don't know the end of your story, you're going to end up in a big mess.
Yeah.
Was that specifically for the episodes, for the series, or for the show's final end? Do you know where it's going?
It's specifically for an episode, really, because obviously you can't have a final end for a TV show while you're still making it. You don't know how it's going to go on. I'd be in real trouble if I had one for Doctor Who, wouldn't I? I mean, generally speaking, as Mark always says, the spoilers here are all over 100 years old. And close your ears, but he ends up on the Sussex Downs keeping bees. That's where he goes. That's what happens. I don't know why. I've never figured that one out. He gets very, very bored if criminals aren't committing enough crimes, but then he thinks, I know, I'll keep bees. You think, what? Really? Watson never says, isn't that, no disrespect, fucking boring? I mean, you've been solving murders to stave off a cocaine problem and now just putting on a stupid hat and wandering around some small huts that buzz a lot is enough for you. Twat. But, anyway, so no, we don't know where it ends, but that is ultimately where it ends. That hand there, that's...
Hello.
Hello.
Lestrade, could we ask you to say, you bastard?
You bastard. Do you want it for your ringtone? You'll come over with the microphone.
Hi, Stephen. Well, I'm not used to this. Will the sibling, the third sibling, make an appearance?
What third sibling?
Of Mycroft and Sherlock.
Who said there was one?
You did.
No, I didn't.
What about the other one?
Who says that refers to a sibling? You bastard. Oh, you've got your routine now, haven't you? There we go.
Yeah. 2 words is all I need.
That blue hand there, it looks blue. I'm sure it's not really blue.
Hi. So you arguably have 2 very clever characters in Sherlock and Doctor Who, and I was wondering if you're ever making stories for either one of them and thinking, maybe this is better set for Doctor Who or vice versa.
No, because they're such different things. I mean, I know I suppose there are elements of the Victorian adventurer and eccentric boffin about both of them, but I never think of them as the same at all. And Sherlock in the end is having various emotional crises while pretending to do detective work, and Doctor Who's fighting monsters. So they don't really. Sometimes, and you have to be. Mark and I sit and have discussions about this because we both write both. There are areas where those characters can think or behave in slightly similar ways. Because, in fact, one of the very first notes that Sidney Newman gave Verity Lambert when they were making Doctor Who for the first time was, make that old guy more like Sherlock Holmes. He's Sherlock Holmes in space. So we can't, just because we do both shows, shy away from those aspects of the Doctor that are consciously patterned after Sherlock Holmes. We have to embrace them and say, yes, sometimes he can look around a room and see things. And sometimes he can be a bit, emotionally autistic or whatever. But in general, actually, they are quite different characters. But there are superficial resemblances that are not insubstantial, and we can't run away from them. Lady in blue there. I don't know if you are a lady in blue. You are. Well, you're a lady and you're in blue, so that was, thank Christ for that.
First of all, I just wanted to say, Rupert, I have loved you since Freddie Honeychurch and Room with a View.
Thank you.
Loved you. My question is for all of you. What did you want to stand out with your Lestrade as opposed to other portrayals of Lestrade?
Well, I approached the part very simply. I just thought I wanted to be a kind of copper that you could believe was a copper, and kind of act as a kind of sounding board for Sherlock's kind of brilliance, really. So I just approached it just really soberly as a policeman, a credible policeman.
In terms of writing the part, Lestrade in the original varies quite a lot, from being a sort of a complete idiot and rather aggressive to being actually rather a fine man, and the man that Holmes calls the best of the Scotland Yarders. But our key for it was, there's a wonderful story called The Six Napoleons, and in it Sherlock Holmes is, I think, as I recall, being slightly snide about something, and Lestrade turns to him and says, "You think that we don't like you. You think that we're jealous of you. Well, we're not. If you came round Scotland Yard, every single one of us would shake your hand." And that was the key to the relationship for Mark and me, was thinking, this is a man who hugely admires Sherlock Holmes, has sufficient confidence in his own ability that he doesn't mind admitting that somebody else is better and going to them for help, which makes him a bigger man than Sherlock Holmes, who can't bear to admit that his brother is smarter than him. So the idea is that Sherlock Holmes is dismissive of a man who genuinely likes him and admires him, because he just assumes that Lestrade is jealous or angry, and he's not at all. He's a complete ally, and he's a fine and clever copper.
You also changed the writing very slightly, didn't you, from the pilot to the main thing? Because we did audience research on our pilot, and people complained that the police were too stupid. So we told Rupert, could you just clever the fuck up a bit? And if in doubt, just say, "You bastard." And so we did. We might try and make sure that he was actually rather wise, and we gave him that beat in the first episode where he says Sherlock Holmes is a great man, and one day, if we're very lucky, he might be a good one, which is the arc of the series.
Lestrade absolutely gets it. He gets what Sherlock Holmes can be on a good day and what he might be on a bad day. So that's quite a key character, actually. Lady at the back there just put her hand up a second ago.
Hi. One of my favorite things about the show is the balance of comedy and drama. And I was wondering if you could just talk about the comedy side, writing, or even filming in the show.
Well, both Mark and I, our background is in comedy. That's what we, and if your background's in comedy, you have a tendency, if a scene is not doing anything else to make it funny, you just do think, well, there's a gap here, people just talking about the plot, let's stick some gags in and they might fall asleep. But also, in the original stories, and this is the most neglected aspect of Doyle's work, the stories are funny. There's lots of jokes in them. The interaction between Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson is genuinely humorous. Laugh out loud at times. The beginning of The Valley of Fear, the beginning of The Dancing Men, very, very good comedy stuff in there. And our favorite version, I think the single best Sherlock Holmes movie ever made, and the most beautiful and the most clever, is The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes by Billy Wilder, which and Izzy Diamond, which is a straightforward comedy. It is a comedy, and yet it captures more of Sherlock Holmes, possibly than any other movie version. Again, Rathbone and Bruce are bloody hilarious. So, comedy, there's a lot of humor in Sherlock Holmes. And when people miss that, they miss a whole area of that show. And I'll come right down to it, Mark and I are comedy tarts. So there you go.
But I think it's because you come from comedy, I think actually it goes in quite effortlessly, the comedy. I think sometimes trying to jam in a funny bit in a drama is much harder, but you do it very well.
Well, it's great if you're a comedy writer doing drama because you get such compliments for the jokes. They're saying, look, you had 4 jokes, and they're saying, yes, I am a genius. But the truth is, if you're an old sitcom hack like me, you're used to the idea, 3 jokes a page. We all pretend we don't do that, but we do. And, that's really hard. So once you've exercised that muscle, it's really bloody useful in the dull bits in drama to get your comedy trousers on. There aren't actually trousers, but I am contemplating it. Lady there.
Hello there.
Hello.
So I absolutely love Sherlock and Mycroft's relationship and how it grew. In the most recent season, can we expect more of that? And kind of a peek in their Sherlock kind of like depends on Mycroft, and it's like a vulnerability that has been more expressed. Can we see more? Hopefully.
We haven't written the next series yet, but I'm very much assuming that we will. I mean, that's something that's... It was quite late on that we started working it that way. Because Scandal in Belgravia was the 3rd one we made of the 2nd series, and that's the first time we saw, really, Mycroft in the caring role. He's a chilly old reptile, but he actually cares for his brother. And I found it a very useful device, and so did Mark. We have understanding where Sherlock Holmes fits in the world. He's the renegade, posh, younger son who should be in the Foreign Office or in the civil service or in some incredibly high-paid job, who one day came home and said, I've decided to be a private detective. And they say, oh God, is he back on the drugs? That's who he is. And having Mycroft as this guy saying, someday I'll get him to a university and make him a mathematician, is a useful way of pegging him. But there is genuine care there. That is sort of not in the original, really. It comes slightly from the Billy Wilder version in Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, where the relationship is more combative, and rather to our own surprise, we added quite a strong compassionate element to it as well. It just sort of evolved, really, and I assume we'll continue to do so.
Stephen, you kind of alluded earlier that Sherlock can't admit that Mycroft is more intelligent than him.
Mm-hmm.
Is Mycroft more intelligent than Sherlock?
Yes. I mean, that's an absolute fact of the original stories, that the Mycroft is the smarter brother.
I should probably read more.
Yeah.
All right,
but he doesn't have Sherlock's, other abilities. He doesn't have Sherlock's energy. He doesn't have his much denied but real need to fight for justice and all that, and to help people, which, underneath all of Sherlock's pretense is there. He is keeping the world safe. That's what he is. He's a hero. You don't have any of those things. and he couldn't beat anyone in a fight, which Sherlock can do. So, but he is, Mycroft is the smarter brother, and that's in the original stories. Sherlock is quite relaxed about that. In our version, Sherlock's genuinely, well, hilariously,
Actually,
Sherlock is,
Benedict.
Sherlock is pissed off about Mycroft being smarter than him, but he's got it under control. Benedict is furious. And he's constantly saying, Mycroft's not really smarter than me, and we're saying, yeah, he is. Not only is Mycroft smarter than Sherlock, but Mark's smarter than you. I mean, well, he's smarter than everybody, Mark. That's all right. But he is quite vain about it.
So when Mycroft is relying on Sherlock's help in so many of these cases, then is it not just because of his intelligence, because Mycroft can figure it out himself, is because he's got all these other elements?
Yeah, it's not just as a matter of sheer brain power. If you could measure that perfectly, Mycroft's got the better equipment, but he doesn't have any of the experience, the understanding, the energy, the learning. He hasn't turned himself into the greatest detective, gentleman, fighter in the world. He hasn't done any of those things. So he couldn't do what Sherlock Holmes can do. But in that one area, he's just as he's slightly taller. Again, really pisses Benedict off. He is slightly smarter. Do you remember that?
Mycroft doesn't like to do the legwork.
No, he doesn't. No. Do you remember in the second series?
Are you sure you want to do this?
Said to Mark, "When did you get taller than me?" And Mark said, "Well, I was always taller than you." But anyway, that was the answer.
Next question.
Lady in the interesting hat. The stripy hat, that one there, yeah. Yes, you, yeah. Oh, I didn't know if it was a hat.
It's a hat, it's a hoodie.
Like
It's
a hat.
covering your head.
Hoodie, darling.
Okay.
Obviously-
Modern world.
Obviously, this is a show that appeals to a wide fan base and has touched a lot of people. So what has most surprised and delighted you, all of you, about the fan response to this show?
I never was aware before, and I think I'm right in saying this vaguely, that loads and loads and loads of women were really into Sherlock Holmes. It wasn't something when you were younger, that you mentioned to women saying, I too like Sherlock Holmes. Let's go out. That wouldn't have been something that really worked. Or Doctor Who. I'm a Sherlock Holmes and Doctor Who fan. You'll probably like me. That didn't work. Trust me. I was a virgin till I was 42. And it carried on. What's the most funny? The thing that most delights me, anyway, is always the most creative. Is the creative response. The fact that people do their own versions, make their own art, make up their own stories. Because I mean, as I keep saying, that's like hothousing talent. I think fan fiction, fan art, all these things. That is the way to learn how to do the job. It really, really is. So I like that. I like the extraordinary creative response to it. Not just passively consuming, but saying, you know what, I'm going to have a go at it. I'm going to try and do it. Because that's the first step to doing it for real. So that probably.
Yeah, that's true. Well, the Sherlock event was great. I've never been to any of these Comic-Cons before. But there was a thank you. But it's the passion and the creativity is astonishing, and it's as it should be. It's a lovely symbiotic relationship between the material and the fan base, which is great.
Yeah, and I think it's also the self-policing that everybody does as well. You know, the set lock, so people turn up for shooting, but if you don't want to see it, then you don't have to because you've all decided to put it on one particular hashtag. And food. Get lots of food, don't we? Get lots of fan food. No, at the convention we did, you did an interview the day before and said you're not allowed to buy yourself chocolate. You had to be given chocolate. Conveniently, a day before we had the convention. So everyone turned up for Stephen, just bars and bars of chocolate. It was great. Kept us going for weeks.
It's true, I have this rule, I can never ever buy myself chocolate because I like it too much, but I'm allowed to steal it from other people or get it as a gift. Also, when Mark Gatiss found out about that, he just wandered around with a packet of Maltesers in his pocket and just say, Stephen, do you want a chocolate? I felt like a dog being trained. Woman with red hair there. Red hair woman. Is it real red hair?
Hi, guys. Just wondering, obviously, it's taken quite a long time to get through series, and do you find that difficult from a production point of view, that it is so spaced out? Is it difficult to kind of get into a groove with shooting and with production side of it, or you all fall together pretty easily?
It's all right. I mean, the set looks a bit dodgy when we bring it back out again, and it might have been a flood or something, but no, I mean, you can't do anything because the scripts don't get there any sooner. I mean, even if you've got a 2-year gap, you still get the scripts.
I may not have mentioned it, darling.
So I get on
when
with
you're
other
not
things.
looking, I make Doctor Who. And I'm learning to drive.
But it's a lovely family film when we all get back and do our read-throughs, isn't it?
It has the strange result that every time that we turn up and make the show, it actually does feel like we're doing a reunion show. Say, oh, we're back again. I never thought I'd see you again. And we all fall into each other's arms sobbing, and we think, oh, that's ridiculous. We do this every year. So, or not every year, let's be honest. It's not every year. Oh, the giddy speed that would be. Right, who's next? That hand that just went up there. That's a man. It's a man. Have you ever lucked out today, my boy?
Thank you very much. From a writing standpoint, how do you determine how much Lestrade, Mrs. Hudson, and Mycroft put in, and love Mrs. Hudson?
Well, that was tactless, wasn't it, Rupert?
Yeah.
I mean, call him a bastard. Go on. Well, no, it just as it arises in the story, really. Originally, we were going to stick with the story idea that Lestrade, he's only in, actually, a surprisingly small number of the stories, and there's loads of other different policemen turning up, and obviously, logically, it wouldn't always be the same inspector that Sherlock Holmes was dealing with. But then we did an episode without Roper, and frankly, it felt wrong. It didn't feel right at all. So we just thought. So Mark and I put our heads together and thought we just have this idea that whenever Sherlock Holmes collides with the police, the word goes out to Lestrade: go there and stop all the police punching him. Right? It's your job. So even if he goes to Dartmoor, Lestrade turns up saying, "Oh, I've just come home from holiday, you bastard." So that Mrs. Hudson. Well, she doesn't speak in the original, as we referenced in that piece. She just doesn't speak. But we've got Eunice Stubbs, one of the huge comedy talents of all time. So we have to give her loads of stuff, and we've just Mark and I have just delighted in giving her more and more of a lurid backstory, which is great. The other sort of ancillary characters like Molly Hooper was never intended to be a continuing character. But she was intended literally for that one scene, which was to establish Sherlock not even noticing that this girl's in love with him, and not even caring, and not even being cruel to her, just not noticing. But she was so great. Lou Brealey was so great, and it instantly put Sherlock Holmes in the modern world that there was a girl like that there. And that character has become so much more complicated and so much more powerful over time that you end up using her a lot. Even though it's the one thing we said we'd never do, was introduce a new character. And we did. We've now forgotten that she's not in the original. Lady over there, just put her hand up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My question is, I've heard in interviews with other writers and showrunners that when writing in television, you don't necessarily, the characters will make changes, but in the end, the consistency is what people are looking for. So no matter how far they progress, the changes they make, in the end, they're kind of going to wind up in the same spot they were in the beginning, or the same type of person. So with all the changes we've seen Sherlock make, is that sort of a theory that you subscribe to? Or is there room, since you're saying that in the end, we know where he's going to wind up?
In general, that comes from the right place. A TV series has to deliver what it promises to deliver. You don't want everyone to have radically changed, but I think it's an idea that's coming under vigorous attack over time, with things like Breaking Bad, which is all about a character that he never goes back into his box and so on. And we have a general arc for Sherlock that exists in the original, is that he starts very, very cold-blooded and unlikable and humorless, and becomes progressively humanized is too strong, but he certainly becomes wiser, funnier, more agreeable, with occasional moments where he's absolutely terrifying. But we have, I think it would be a shame if you have huge events happening in people's lives and it leaves them completely unchanged. But you do, in the end, want them to get back to 221B and get a new client and solve a crime. So it's a balance.
We have time for one, maybe two more questions.
Make them fantastic. Who hasn't spoken? Who's been longing to speak the most? Okay.
Well, I'm in the front row, so I think you should.
It was a late hand, though.
I'm sorry, I know. So, Sherlock Holmes' best man speech might be the most iconic best man speech ever in television. Wondering what the best man and maid of honor speeches were like at your wedding.
The best man's speech.
My wedding.
And
Your
my
wedding.
wedding.
I've had two, darling. Be more specific.
Yes, actually, the best man's speech at our wedding.
Oh, it's a brilliant.
He had the same best man at both his weddings. And so he said, what was it? To the virtues, hello and welcome. To the Moffats, here we are again. I've lasted longer.
I've been a best man many times, actually. Well, 3 times. So I'm quite good at giving best man speeches. So I wrote most of that speech. I am actually available for being a best man, even if I don't know you very well, because I'm good at that bit. Rupert, what was your best man speech like?
I didn't have one.
You know?
No. I got married in a little park in Australia with 11 people and no best men.
You married 11 people in a park?
I did. I married.
Is that why you have so many children? Okay. I understand that. You bastard. Okay, do we have one more then?
One more question.
That lady's being pointed at. Oh, you're being pointed at.
She doesn't know because it's been pointed
She
at.
doesn't even want to ask a question.
All right. Has anyone got a great question? Oh, you've got a great question. Hooray.
My question is, in The Resident Patient, there's a murderer named Moffat, so I was wondering if you'd ever think of making a cameo as yourself.
And killing someone.
Yeah, killing someone. Just because I got the same name. Well, the problem with that would be I'm really shit at acting. And I think it would be rather noticeable. I think in terms of quality control, we've got an absolutely stellar, brilliant cast, and then a fat bloke who looks like he's won a competition isn't gonna fit in very well. Not since Lazenby played Bond. All the Lazenby whine, give it up, he was crap. We've got time for a 24-second.
We got about 23 seconds.
All right, go. It's a man, it's a man, it's a man.
Does anybody ever come up to you on the street and say, like, God damn you, Moffat, or curse you, or...
Well, no, people are generally very nice.
I know they want your picture, but, like, no one ever...
Well, why would they? No, I hope not. They shouldn't.
Because he's a shit driver? Ladies and gentlemen, that's our time. Let's hear it for Stephen and Rupert and Sam.